principles is that they're all human-centered. You can't really talk about like what a sustainable forest is like. In nature, it's all kind of given. But if you look at resilience is a factor of sustainable principle. If you talk about individual resilience, it's something which basically is something that if you've got a good immune system, you have resilience. Community resilience, well, food supply, how much food supply have you got in the local community if the trucks stop running? Is it going to be like 2 days? Is it going to be a week? Is it going to be 2 weeks before you run out of food? And then there's planetary resilience as well, which is the ecosystem's level of strength. So this is like, kind of working development, and it's like looking at how to be effective in the world and how to actually employ the principles we talked about in a way which is like not going to waste our time and energy, because like we expand our awareness into this huge dimension, and then it's like rounding it into like, well, what actually do? One thing we can do is become more coherent. And I'm really enthusiastic to work with the Institute HeartMath and the Global Coherence Initiative. And basically what they're doing is like, they're doing a lot of studies on what they call the non-physical effects that humans have on the environment. And actually what they're talking about is things like intuition and measuring. And it's particularly noticeable that when you get heart coherence, and this has been sort of what's considered to be like touchy-feely stuff until recently. But now it's becoming actually mainstream science, mainstream research. This is like, there's 35 different studies ongoing, sponsored by them in various different universities, medical schools, and other places. And what they're doing is that they're basically showing to people in objectively measurable ways that heart-open people have an effect on the people around them, and you know that on an intuitive level. But if you get heart-open, yeah, so like if, for instance, like, if someone who's in a really heart-open state, is energized, who's like feeling good about life, and is like, basically in a state of coherence, walks into a room, and you detach electromagnetic sensing to people in the room, there's a response. You can measure it. You can measure that person entering the room and affecting the people in the environment.
By measuring
electromagnetic responses on the skin.
What the electromagnetic responses which indicate that the heart is more open?
No, well, you can actually measure the magnetic field of the heart, which is 60 times stronger. To sort of define coherence, what it is this. Is basically there is a state which you can measure where people are in a heart-open state. It's triggered by basically the heart, because what happens when this occurs is the magnetic field extends, and the rest of the organs of the body, including the brain, go into an optimal state of functioning where they're using exactly the right amount of energy. Well, it's often not the case. People are incoherent in energy. So you're watching television, depressed, at work, not happy, those things, that picture, their actual kind of like physiological responses are not as optimized. It's the best way of expressing it.
Lower magnetic.
Massive, 60 times stronger. They do things like, for instance, getting like, they've got a basketball player, really good centre, and they've got them into a regime of like, heart-opening meditations and like, empathy experiments and, this kind of thing, like really being like energized and feeling good about life and positive. And then they're going to play with the basketball team, they put like sensors on each of the basketball players and they go because it's contagious, it affects, it's coherent people and groups affect other people. Classic example I use is that feeling when we have on the dance floor, you look around you, everyone's going for it, and your magnetic fields are expanding that in the body and they're conjoining with other magnetic fields. Basically you're creating a coherent shared magnetic environment. And it's measurable. You can do it electromagnetically, you can do it magnetically, you can show it. And that's what they're doing. The great thing about that is that it bridges this story with people that are skeptical. And we all have that skeptical element, and it just is very, very good. If you want to talk to somebody and they're like into their science and they're a rational person, you go, well, okay, I'm going to show you this reference and that. This is what these people are saying, it's that university, and etc. So coherence is one of the key principles I like to emphasize because it's something we can do. We can be coherent, and We can start, on a personal level, and we can do it on a social level, and we can scale it up to a planetary level. Reconnection with the environment is one of the key things. It's like our energy expands out into our environment, and we're connected. It's literally that feeling. When you feel connected, you're connected. So intention is the other element. Intention and coherence have an effect. And there's a really interesting experiment. I'm not going to go into too much detail because I know that attention spans are probably reaching their limit here. But the Global Consciousness Project at Harvard University has shown that intention and coherence are globally scalable effects. So they use that using random number generators and show basically that when people get together for things like earth dance or this love parade or whatever it is, focused energy, basically it's electromagnetically measurable, it's measurable in terms of random numbers as well. The Global Consciousness Project. There's a random number. Okay, what the Global Consciousness Project is that they create these things with X, which are basically electromagnetically shielded random number generators in forms of computers. They isolated them in laboratory conditions in 16 places around the world. And then basically got these random number generators just to churn out huge numbers of numbers. And then what they did is they looked at global events and to see if there were deviations from normal when specific events happened. When 9/11 happened, there was a huge spike. And it was statistically, massively unlikely in order of like hundreds of thousands or millions.
But that's random.
So they vary, less random. They vary in randomness, and there's two different directions they can go. But yes, they showed non-random behaviour basically. What's really interesting in that is that 9/11 was a huge thing, but then 2 weeks later there was a global prayer event of people praying around the world for the 9/11 story, and on that day there was a deviation that was equal to that and in the opposite direction. Now, the thing about that is there's much less people participating, but they're participating with intent and in coherence. So people with intent and coherence are basically like having a much more powerful effect on their environment than those that are just choosing to be passive and incoherent. So it's just another kind of little idea. It's just to see a few things because there's some great things out there that are giving us tools that we can really use. This is the evolutionary biologist Bruce Lipton. It's real obvious stuff actually. He calls it spontaneous evolution. It's a biological process. And it's the classic story of the emergence of the caterpillar into the butterfly. But what's happening is paradigm shift for the creature involved. And from the caterpillar's point of view, it reaches a point in its life cycle where literally, basically the cells start to break down, they become undifferentiated. So differentiated cells suddenly become a soup of cellular kind of like undifferentiation. And it goes into this pupa phase, and basically it's a big soup. And within that, something miraculous occurs, which is called spontaneous evolution. Because there isn't like a chemical trigger or anything like that, I understand. But basically, at a certain point, imaginal cells appear. And what these cells do is they basically broadcast to all the other cells what they should do. And they literally organise the new body of the butterfly. So if you want to think about us emerging into a new paradigm, the role that people like ourselves can play, we know there's a breakdown happening. If you accept that, and that's what I feel personally, that our culture is in a breakdown phase. So what to do? It's like, it's about understanding that it's not about fighting the breakdown. If you just plastering over the process, you're fighting against the forces of nature and you're basically wasting energy. The thing to do is become an imaginal cell which is sending out a broadcasting signal, to be the imagination of the butterfly that's to come. So it's just another way of thinking of paradigm shift. But it's also applied to Bruce's book. The spontaneous evolution is a great book. And it really goes into it in depth. And he's an evolutionary biologist and he's really a great scientist. So, at what point do we actually affect things? I mean, if we get people together and we're in coherence and we're intentional and all those other stuff, and what point do we actually influence the field around us. You know? That's the idea of critical mass. The monkey syndrome is another example of what before. At what point does coherent consciousness capable of influencing the field? Well, one group of people who've been doing a lot of research on this stuff are actually the Mark Heley University. Basically, it's transcendental meditation. And what they wanted to do is they wanted to show that transcendental meditation has a measurable effect, not just in the people that do it, but the people around them. So over the last 30 years, they've spent a lot of money doing these really quite rigorous scientific studies, which have basically taken trained transcendental meditators in groups and put them in places like Washington DC where there's a high crime rate. And then they would measure basically the effect that the meditators had on the crime rate. And it showed really remarkable results. In one particular study in Washington DC, the crime rate increased by 26%, which is deviation from normal. It's like billions to 1 in terms of statistical probability. And in terms of a shift, these are just ideas. I'm not advocating a particular one, but people have been talking about 1% of the population, 67,000 to 67 million people. One people in coherence would basically send out a message to the field that would basically create a different form of reality. It's about the size of the United Kingdom. Yeah, it's about the size of the United Kingdom. But the Maharishi people say, actually, if people got really focused, if they got really coherent, if they mastered meditation, if they were really they call them yogic flyers. These are people that can actually fly. Looks like they're bouncing up around people. That's their thing. Okay? So they said you get 8,241 yogic flyers in meditation together at one point, and you will cause a change in the field. Which is interesting. I'm just putting it out as their idea. What I will say is the Maharishi University's studies on power of meditation on crime rates and such is really good science.
Have you ever read Power versus Force by David Hawkins? No. Amazing, but yeah, it's basically saying only takes one person of Christ consciousness to change the world.
Cool.
Yeah.
So ideas, but it's a question really. This one: how much coherent consciousness changes the field? So, really great book out there. If you want to get into this in more detail, The Intentional Experiment, written by Linda Taggart. She's the author of The Field. She's a scientific journalist, and basically what she does, she takes stuff that, for instance, the Institute of Neurotic Sciences are doing on intention, intuition, the roles that things have to play. And just a little summary is intention has an offhand observation has a direct effect on our reality. It seems to affect reality both forward in time and backward in time. That it's that this is a fundamental breakthrough in science. This is one of the best research, supported books I've read on the subject ever, and I really recommend it. So, we're getting to what to do point from the whole story. And social change, definitely political change, all of those things. But the real edge for me is on this intention plus coherence field. So, what I'm personally working on at the moment is a globally synchronized piece of that for the exact point of winter solstice in 2012. I'm doing that with Earth Dance and with lots of other partners, and it's not my idea, it's basically our idea. And lots of people have ideas for doing to that point, but if we focus our attention and create a wave of coherence at that particular point, what we're doing is we're aligning with a kind of a moment that's out there anyway. Bollywood have projected infinite disasters upon it. So there's that field to deal with, but coherent, intentional people are capable of changing the field. So, we have this opportunity, we have embraced the opportunity at this particular moment, which kind of brings together this whole idea of paradigm shift. So, that's pretty much it. That's, Earth Dance. I'm actually going to be speaking at the Earth Dance event next weekend. I'm doing the satellite presentation, so it's my next gig in California. It's Earth Dance happens around the world, and so 600 events in 50 countries. And it's basically this idea of globally synchronized peace meditation. Attention,